Introduction. On April 26, 1986, the world witnessed one of the worst nuclear disasters in history, the Chernobyl disaster. The explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine sent a cloud of radioactive particles into the atmosphere, contaminating vast areas of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. The disaster left behind a legacy of death, disease, and environmental degradation that continues to this day. Act 1. The accident. The disaster began when a test was conducted at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant to see if the reactor's cooling system would work in the event of a power failure. The test went terribly wrong, and the reactor overheated, causing a massive explosion that sent a plume of radioactive smoke into the sky. The explosion was followed by a fire that raged for several days, spreading radioactive material far and wide. Act 2. The aftermath. The disaster had immediate and catastrophic consequences for the people of Chernobyl. Thousands of people were evacuated from the area, and many more were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. In the aftermath of the explosion, hundreds of people died from acute radiation sickness, and many more suffered from long-term health effects, including cancer and birth defects. The environment was also severely impacted, with vast areas of land contaminated by radioactive material, making them uninhabitable for generations to come. Act 3. The response. Despite the devastating impact of the disaster, the response to the crisis was remarkable. Brave first responders, including firefighters and plant workers, put their lives on the line to contain the fire and prevent the further spread of radioactive material. The Soviet government was slow to admit to the extent of the disaster, but eventually, the international community came together to provide aid and support to those affected. Conclusion. The Chernobyl disaster was a tragedy of neglect and courage. The explosion was a result of a lack of safety measures and a disregard for the consequences of nuclear energy. But in the face of disaster, the bravery and selflessness of the responders and the international community were inspiring. The disaster serves as a reminder of the need for caution and vigilance when dealing with nuclear energy, and the importance of responding to disasters with compassion and generosity. Outro. The story of the Chernobyl disaster is one of tragedy and triumph. The disaster had far-reaching consequences, but it also demonstrated the strength of the human spirit and the power of international cooperation in the face of disaster. Today, the Chernobyl exclusion zone remains a testament to the terrible consequences of neglect and a warning of what can happen when we ignore the dangers of nuclear energy.